So with my Seasons series, which is here in these bowls, I developed them really from my observation of nature and the countryside where I live. And to show the development of why I got to this point, I thought I'd go back to first principles and really, in my sketchbook, show you how, for example, this one, which is winter, I got to do it like that. And here I've got photographs and colour mood boards, I suppose you could call them, just to show where I came from. And this one very much is influenced by the mountains. And here, for example, you can see you've got the snowy mountain, you've got the bright blue sky, and I tried to emulate that with this glaze here, which is a mixture of cobalt and a white to make it run.
Did you develop that glaze yourself, Moya?
I didn't develop. It's a mixture of oxides and then just a white satin matte glaze. So I put the oxide on first and then I put the glaze over it. But I wanted it to drip like that because I wanted to have the idea of a snowy sort of environment. And then to get the idea of the chill factor, I brought in this silver leaf, which I put there. Very much this was based on walks where I'd seen puddles like this with the sort of ice as it crystallised and sparkled. So that was my winter bowl. And then with a different feel altogether, I then looked at spring and looked at the colours of spring. And this was what struck me most, the new crops in the fields with the tractor marks going along them like that. And so I basically wanted to bring that into it. So this here with the idea of furrowed crops and then marks like this all around the landscape. So I also wanted to allude to the lovely fresh greenness of new leaves in a woodland scene. And so this is sort of like the deep dark wood here, this line here. So that glaze I developed myself, and I wanted it to make that sort of speckly line like that. And the way I made it sort of pull away from itself was to put little pin drops on it before I put the glaze on, so then it pulls away from the holes. So then with summer, this is a very different look, very bright, and this was based on beach scenes because this glaze here, which is very sort of rough, which I think you've seen before, a bit like sand, but I wanted to have that idea of sun, sea and sand, and so I basically looked for the glazes which would sort of make it happen. And the gold leaf is really the sun and how brilliant it can be on a summer's day. These pictures aren't so good really, but you can sort of vaguely see the idea of the sun, sea and sand. And these is the colour palette that I was working from, these sort of colours. And then finally autumn, which is just the most beautiful colours, isn't it? So rich. And these are just leaves, pictures of leaves and pumpkins, and again I've sort of tried to bring those colours in so that, you know, these reds and golds, and then here I've got a brown. And for me the whole idea has always been just to give the idea of the colour rather than the, you know, glaze it all over, and that's why I've just done the little pieces of colour for it.
Very effective.
So that's really where I've sort of come from with that season series. So,
Wonderful. So where's that headed off to next?
So that's heading off next is I want to develop the colour side of it because I quite like just the playing of the colours and the lines. I like lines as well. I like the sort of geometric lines or just a twist of a line. Or here we've got triangles. And so I've been looking at things like Moroccan, you know, you can see the Moroccan influence in these tile patterns, this thing where the colour is sort of pulling away from the paint. And here we've got this sort of line here, but everything else is very square. And then these colours, these blocks of colour. So I love blocks of colour, I think they work really nicely. And then again, this wonderful sort of richness of this here. which I think is fantastic. And also, it reminds me very much of some of the things which I have looked at here, these Earth and Space satellite photographs, where they're bringing in the tulip fields is the main one. Let's see if I can find it. Which is just fantastically, here we are.
Oh,
I mean, that's just so fantastically vibrant, isn't it?
Amazing, isn't it?
And so I want to sort of get towards that. So it's development of colour rather than the theme or the form. But the problem is what form am I going to use? And so I've got to work that out, because it's not going to work so well on that. Something like this isn't. So maybe I'm looking at flats.
Flat.
Because you always start with your colours then.
So I'm going to start with the colours, yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's really where I'm going to develop next, I hope.
Okay, interesting.
So,
Look forward to this.
yeah, we'll see.